The dust raised by the 2023 elections in Nigeria is yet to settle. However, we are not here to discuss the dust of these elections, but we are here to look into the wisdom to be tapped from the past election in Nigeria. I am JJ Abiola. Done?
Yeah.
People say the election was terrible. What are you saying?
Okay, I'm actually saying that the election is a test. It's a test of promise for government and all the agencies of government that were involved, because they actually said that they were going to give the people the best of elections.
Yeah.
So it's a test of their promise, whether people can actually trust their promise in the future. For the candidate, it's a test of wit, worth, and popularity. It afforded all of them to actually display all of this in fullness. For the electorate, the people, it's actually a test of response, how they will respond to issues like this in the future. So because a philosopher said the matter is not the matter is actually the way you respond to the matter. So it's a test of their response. So in all of this, there are agitations here and there, but beyond the agitations are actually the wisdoms that are actually loaded within the election process from start to the point that we are in at the moment.
Okay, so while the people have personal reactions and opinions about how the whole electoral process went down to the outplay of the result, you are urging the people not to only concentrate on all of those, but to also tap into the wisdom that could be
absolutely.
gained.
From the beginning of the election to the end, I was actually concerned about the wisdom, because the wisdom therein can actually help a life. The wisdom therein can help a people. The wisdom therein can actually help a community, and it's so important and instructive.
Fantastic. So what then would you say are these lessons? What then would you call the wisdom?
Okay, there are a lot of lessons, just as I've said, but the first one is that we must learn as a people that things may not always go as planned.
Things may not always go as planned.
You understand? Things may not always go as planned.
This is life.
This is life, because things will not always go as expected. You see, the major principle of accomplishment is the principle of faith.
Okay.
When you believe, it is said that whatever you believe will come to pass.
Yeah.
But the only principle that is a bit bigger than that is the principle of response. That is how you respond to things when they do not go as planned. So what differentiates good from great is actually what you do when things don't go as planned. And this will always dot the journey of success. You will plan, you will have faith, you will tell the people, you will even declare it to people.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, it may not always go as planned. So what happens if it does not go as planned? This election, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people were actually disappointed.
A lot.
It is good to be disappointed. What is not good is to drag in disappointment. So how do you respond to issues when they do not go your way? Because you are going to start a business if you have not started, and things will not always go as planned. You are going to run for office if you have not, and things will not always go as planned. You will start a career if you have not, and things will not always go as planned. So as people who want to move from good to great, as people who want to experience greatness, as a community, that actually all of us were praying for Nigeria to actually be great. So in the process of our growth, we will see that a lot of things that we plan out will not go as planned. And this is the first lesson that I actually learned from the election. You cannot imagine that a sitting governor who actually, just about 4 years ago, won in 3 senatorial districts, perhaps, to become a governor, found it very difficult to win in 1 senatorial district to be a senator.
Fantastic.
4 years ago, he won as a governor. But the state divided into 3 now. He cannot win 1/3 of his entire state.
You know,
things will not always go
as
as planned.
Like, this is one thing that is so peculiar to this last election. every prediction, everything people said, you cannot say for sure you saw this whole thing coming. Like, it is just one of a kind of electoral process. Okay, so done. I would like you to narrow down these listings to three of the political candidates, the presidential political candidates. What are the lessons we can learn from each of the first three? I'll say the PDP presidential candidate, the APC presidential candidate, and of course the Labour Party presidential candidate.
Okay, let me start from Emilokon, the president-elect. Yeah. So you get, one of the things that I learned is that every one of us, we must build capacity within our call. If you are a teacher, build capacity to a point that you cannot be ignored.
I swear.
Anywhere you may want to be, you may be a trader,
Yeah.
build capacity to the point that you cannot be ignored. Because once you cannot be ignored, then that means that people will continue to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
But beyond attention, Asiwaju has shown that you can actually be bigger than the system that produced you. That means that, because if you look at the entire, from the primary election, everything seemed to be against him. I never knew that he would emerge as the candidate of the party. Because even within his own political party, the party chairman came out to say, oh, we now had a consensus candidate who is the person of Lawan. But he was still able to fight through all of this to emerge as the candidate of the party. For me, I did not even, I wasn't counting the secondary election as the main election for him as a person. I actually counted the first, which is the primary election, as his main election. Because fighting your enemies will need a bit of bullets. Fighting your friends will need dozens of bullets. Because you are fighting people who know your secret. You are fighting a system that produce you. But he was obviously bigger than the system. He could not be caged. So I tell people that if you want to learn anything from him, I don't know his character, but that paying attention to your growth within any system is very important. Paying attention to garnering strength, generating capacity, building ability in your endeavor to a point where you cannot be ignored, to a point where even if the system fights you, you can still emerge triumphant. So I think that for Asiwaju, learn strength in whatever you do. Now for Atiku,
Okay.
I think one thing you should learn from Atiku is the principle of consistency.
Okay.
A lot of people can prophesy and say Atiku cannot become president.
Yeah.
But the miracle of every man lies in his consistency. It's not in his prayer. In fact, if he does his prayer without consistency, he will still not get result. Atiku ran for office as president in 1993. And in every election after then, he has featured. That is a great principle of self-leadership. It's a great principle of growth. It's a great principle of greatness. In Africa, we pay attention to being correct than being consistent. But the miracle of every man is not in being correct. The miracle of every man is in being consistent. So for Atiku, if you look at him, the first thing to actually learn from him as a lesson, especially for us that I beat younger, I ran for office once, and I was actually scared to go back because of the resources involved, because of the belief of the community, because of the mindset of the people, because of the expectation of the electorate. They expect that you are bringing money. But again, you could look beyond all those disappointments and run again if you actually mean business. And this is across board. It could be in your business. You see, I have seen that majority of our people in Africa don't have any peculiar problem than their inability to do something consistently. You see people sell tomato today, before you know it, tomorrow they are selling pepper. A day after, they are selling another thing, they are selling yam. It's because we haven't learned the principle of consistency. And I want this to ring. Atiku, for me, anytime I look at him, I do not see PDP. Anytime I look at him, I do not see all the allegations that people level against him. Anytime I look at him, I just draw the strength of consistency. And I've learned that from him, and I want to be consistent in everything I do, and I think that's what we should learn from him.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And to the third political candidate, that's the Labour Party.
Labour Party, Obi has actually taught us that you can make mark by swimming against the tide. There's nobody who can actually convince an experienced politician. I have not only run for office,
Okay.
I've run for office, I've also managed a political party
Oh, okay.
as a state chairman of a political party. So if you're telling me that this is how to form a party, or that a party will come from the back within 6 months
As
and
in-
it will move to the front, I will tell you that it's going to be exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible. But that's what Obi has taught us. That actually you can swim against the tide.
Anything
The
is
tide
possible.
of prophecy. You can swim against the tide of calculation. You can swim against the tide of expectation. You can swim against the tide of status quo.
Yeah.
You can swim against the tide of, oh, now like this will they do am. And that's exactly what comes to mind. So I think a generation has been bettered
Yeah.
if we are actually ready to take lessons from the election. It is that you cannot join a party or form a party 6 months or 1 year to election
And expect to win.
expect to win an election. And we saw the miracle all over the place.
Yeah.
And the miracle is not in the vote cast.
Yeah.
The miracle is that somebody could swim against the tide and make the impact and gather the community
Crowd.
to actually follow his what's it called? His ambition. This is miraculous.
You know.
So I think beyond the noise of whether he won election or he didn't win election, is also the recognition of the fact that we must learn the lesson
It did the
that
unusual.
yes, we can do the unusual. We can make our mark by not following the path of others. We can actually break into greatness and significance without following the old path, which is what Obi has actually displayed.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I hope you all have been learning a thing or the other on today's favorite show, Don Ojan Speaks. So, Don, what other lessons would you want us to learn from the 2023 elections?
Now, the battle has left ballot casting,
Yeah.
counting, and pronouncement.
Yeah.
It's now at the court level.
Yeah.
So the next lesson is that if you are not satisfied with any result that life is giving you, test the result or try again. And that's why they moved from announcement of result to the court. And everybody is hopeful. You should be hopeful and build the capacity in your life to test the outcome of a result. What that means is that you have submitted a proposal and somebody is saying no, return there tomorrow. Go meet another person. That person is not the only person in that organization. You wanted to do something and you've received 10 no's. That's not enough reason why you should sit back. So from the election, I was looking at everything and I learned again that I must, as a matter of fact, continue to challenge whatever unfavorable outcome that I receive in the process of my career, in my business, or anything I do.
Yeah.
So it's a lesson we must take seriously. I don't want to hear this. Maybe that's the way God wants it. Man, test the result. Even test the result with God. If after all it is not God, what will you say? So test the results. sis.
Beautiful. That's
Yeah.
a very, very awesome point Don has just made. And there is this popular saying that if you can't walk, you crawl. If you can't walk, you crawl. If you can't crawl, you run. Just find a way to do something. Don't just
move
sit
on.
back and watch and
Just
expect
say,
a
"That's the
miracle
result." No.
of some sort. That will portray you as a mediocre of some sort. If you want a change, you fight for it, you go for it, you struggle hard, you give it the necessary sacrifice. And that is one lesson that we also have learned from this past election in Nigeria. So, Don, what other lessons would you also...
So I also learned that those who major in minor will eventually pay for it. There are a lot of people, especially in Lagos. I'm going to use Lagos as an example. Lagos before now, once you are able to be in the good book of party leaders, then automatically you have become the candidate and you have won the election. What that means is that once you are an APC in Lagos and you are able to get yourself into the good books of the leaders, then automatically you have become the candidate of the party. So For the first time, we saw that the secondary election in Lagos was as powerful as the primary election. What politicians in Lagos were doing at that point is that once they could talk to their party leaders, once they get the party ticket, I mean APC,
Yeah.
they know that they don't have problem.
They were sure.
But now, the major came calling at a very critical time. A number of them will have lost that election, if not for whatever it is that they did.
Wow, I've been learning a lot on today's edition. It's been fantastic. I hope you all think that way too. So, Don, what other lessons would you also
Okay,
like to add?
I actually want us to look at two,
Okay.
and there are two, and they are very closely related,
Okay.
and they both start with P.
Okay.
The first is perception,
Okay.
and the second is people. But let's take people aside. Let's talk about perception.
Okay.
A lot of us are not aware that perception is as important as performance. So we tend to lay emphasis on performance, and we leave perception. So when promotion comes, promotion takes a look at perception. And leaves performance. Though they tell you that, oh, we are actually grading you on the basis of performance, but in reality, you are being graded on the basis of perception. People, this election made it very clear that you need to pay attention, deliberate attention to perception. And I'm going to cite an example. When the APC presidential candidate, the president-elect, became the candidate of the party, a lot of people thought, oh, he was going to pick a Christian as his running mate. He went back and forth and picked a Muslim. And that angered the church, majority of the church groupings in Nigeria, that you should have picked a Christian so that it will be a Muslim Christian ticket.
Yeah.
But in reality, nobody is actually in reality angry about Muslim ticket. What were they angry about? They were angry about perception. And I'm going to tell you why. If APC had picked a Babatunde Raji Fashola, who is a Muslim, I guess, and a Zulum, the governor of Borno State, you will have noticed that nobody will have shouted even within the church community. Why? Because a Tinubu Shetima ticket comes with a particular perception. And a Fashola and Zulum ticket will come from another perception. The perception is that nobody is going to think that a Fashola, a cosmopolitan Fashola, and a performing Zulum will Islamize Nigeria.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now
But an Asiwaju, who is also cosmopolitan, has a question mark by picking the former Borno governor because there have been stories here and there,
Scandals,
either
whatever.
true or false, in the community. And these are the stories that form the basis of perception. So this election has made it very clear you can be productive, but how are you being perceived? It's so important. Now, and I'm not saying that people should lazy out in the name of packaging. No, what I'm saying is that your perception you must be deliberate with your perception the same way you are deliberate with your performance. And I can continue to cite example of people that have been wrongly perceived in our community, and you move close to them and you're like, oh, this person is not like this.
Yeah, that happens
but
a
people
lot.
are going to judge them based on their perception. Let me tell you, people are talking about Fashola today. It's not what did he do that actually earned him that. It's not performance, it is perception. And the perception happened around Oshodi area of Lagos because he was able to clear Oshodi. And people felt, oh, he's a performer. And clearing Oshodi will not cost anybody more than 30 million to do. But there were projects of billions that Fashola executed in Lagos when he was governor that nobody knew about. That they weren't judging him based on those big projects. They were judging him on the impact he had on Oshodi within a short period of time, which has formed the basis of his perception. So, sis, work on your perception. I know you're performing, but man, your promotion is not coming on the basis of your performance. It's actually coming on the basis of perception. And that's why you say, when people say Nigeria is really very corrupt, and for those people who have traveled abroad, you have seen that, oh, Nigeria is not as corrupt as we have said is corrupt. But it's perception. Yeah. They are not measuring you based on your corruption.
Yeah.
They are measuring you based on the perception they have of you, which is the perception of corruption. For example, the president says, I'm fighting corruption, I've arrested also people, and you're just walking the street and you're seeing an official of government taking 200 naira. 200 naira should not be the basis of judgment. Because why will you say because an official took 200 naira that you want to judge the entire nation as being corrupt? But that is the perception. That is what you are saying. It is not the secret performance, but the open perception that our people have marketed over the time.
Oh.
So the last one is actually the people.
Okay.
Even if you manipulate the result, you still need people to authenticate it.
Yeah.
They are not going to count stone. Beavers has made it very clear. The power of people. Everybody needs people. So if you manipulate your result and you have a number of votes that is higher than the number of registered voters, they will cancel it. What's that telling you? The wisdom in that is that people will always be very important. If you start a church, you don't have people, you won't call it a church. If you start an organization and you don't have people, you won't call it an organization. If you start a community without people, it's not going to be a community. So people, you must relate with people very well. You must treat people very well, because at the end of the day, everything we are looking for is in people. That's my lessons.
Wow, I've learned a lot, and I don't want this to end just here. I want to go home. I want to, go over this episode. I want to digest it, and I want to live my life, based on these lessons I've learned here on this episode of Don Ojan Speaks. Thank you guys for joining us on today's edition. I hope you also had a good time. Till we come your way next time, do not stop being amazing, be intentional, and also I want you to take note of those two things: your perception and your performance.